My fiancée said, "Don't ask about the people I used to know. That part of my life is over." I replied, "Sure." 2 nights later, during a family gathering, she went pale when a man she didn't expect to ever see again walked in slowly, holding something she instantly recognized as hers. I'm 33, and up until last week, I thought I knew everything I needed to know about the woman I was planning to marry. We'd been together for about 18 months, met through friends, hit it off immediately, got engaged after a year. She was 31, worked in graphic design, seemed pretty straightforward about her life. Her apartment was filled with her artwork, proof of the creative life she'd built. We talked about our pasts, exes, the usual stuff couples discuss when they're getting serious, or at least I thought we did. About 3 weeks ago, we were having dinner at my apartment. I'd made pasta, nothing fancy, just a regular weeknight meal. The kitchen smelled of garlic and basil, wine glasses half empty on the table. She seemed distracted, kept checking her phone, which wasn't like her. Usually, she'd leave it in her purse during dinner, a rule we'd established early on to keep our time together meaningful. Tonight was different. I asked if everything was okay. "Yeah, fine, just work stuff. Anything I can help with?" "No, it's handled." I let it go. But then her phone buzzed again, and I saw her face change, just for a second. This look of worry, maybe fear. Her hand trembled slightly as she reached for it. She grabbed the phone quickly, read whatever message came through, then put it face down on the table. The atmosphere in the room shifted, became tense. Who was that? Nobody important. Didn't look like nobody. She sighed, setting down her fork with a soft clink. "It's just someone from my past. They've been trying to reach out." Ex? Sort of. It's complicated. How complicated? Don't ask about the people I used to know. That part of my life is over. The way she said it felt final, defensive, like she was closing a door I didn't even know was open. Her voice had an edge I'd never heard before. "Sure," I said. "No problem," but it was a problem. Not because I'm jealous or controlling, because the way she said it felt wrong. Like she was hiding something big, something that mattered. The rest of dinner was awkward, conversation forced and stilted. We went through the motions of eating, but neither of us had much appetite anymore. The next day, I couldn't shake the feeling, kept thinking about her reaction to that text, the look on her face, the way she shut down the conversation so quickly. I tried to focus on work, but my mind kept wandering back to that moment at dinner. My colleagues noticed my distraction during meetings. I made excuses about being tired. I didn't snoop through her phone, that's not who I am. My parents raised me to respect privacy, to trust until given a reason not to. But I did pay more attention over the next couple of days. Noticed she was more secretive with her phone, would take calls in another room, seemed on edge, jumping slightly when I'd walk into a room unexpectedly. The woman I knew, always calm and centered, was becoming someone I didn't recognize. I asked her again if everything was okay. She said yes, said she was just stressed about work, a big client, tight deadlines. I wanted to believe her, needed to believe her, but doubt had planted itself in my mind and was growing roots. Then came the family gathering. My parents were hosting a dinner for my sister's birthday. Nothing huge, just immediate family and a few close friends. My fiancée had met my family before, got along with everyone. My mom adored her, often joking that she was gaining the daughter she'd always wanted. She seemed excited about it that morning, helped me pick out a gift for my sister, talked about what she'd wear. She'd chosen a blue dress I'd always loved on her. We got to my parents' house around 6, standard setup. My mom cooking in the kitchen, filling the house with the smell of her famous lasagna, my dad manning the grill outside, my sister greeting people as they arrived. About 15 people total, casual, relaxed. The kind of evening that should have been simple and happy. The kind of evening where nothing could possibly go wrong. My fiancée was talking with my mom in the kitchen when I went outside to help my dad with the grill. They were laughing about something, and I remember feeling relieved that she seemed back to normal. We were out there maybe 20 minutes, talking about work and sports and nothing important. The evening air was cool, pleasant. My dad was in a good mood, telling stories about my sister's childhood. Then my dad's phone rang. He stepped away to take it. Came back a few minutes later with this weird expression, something between confusion and concern. "That was your uncle. He's bringing a +1, someone he met recently through work. Hope that's okay." "Yeah, of course." My uncle was my dad's younger brother, good guy, worked in commercial real estate, always networking. Not unusual for him to bring someone to a family thing, he'd done it before, brought business associates, potential clients, people he was trying to impress or build relationships with. About 10 minutes later, they arrived. I was still outside when I heard the doorbell. My dad went to answer. I followed him inside, wiping my hands on a napkin. Nothing prepared me for what happened next. My uncle walked in first. Behind him was a guy I'd never seen before, tall, maybe late 30s, dressed business casual, expensive watch, polished shoes, carrying a small leather portfolio under his arm. Something about him immediately felt wrong. His smile was too calculated, his eyes too sharp. "Everyone, this is my colleague. We've been working on a project together. Hope it's okay I brought him." My mom immediately went into hostess mode. "Of course, the more the merrier. Come in, make yourself comfortable." I was standing near the kitchen door, had a clear view of the living room where everyone was gathered. Saw my fiancée turn to look at who'd arrived. Time seemed to slow down in that moment. The color drained from her face, completely. Like she'd seen a ghost. Her wine glass slipped slightly in her hand, red wine sloshing dangerously close to the rim. I saw her grip tighten, knuckles going white. The man saw her too. His expression didn't change much, but something flickered in his eyes, recognition, and maybe satisfaction. A predator spotting prey. He walked slowly into the room. Everyone was doing introductions, shaking hands. He made his way around, polite and charming, playing the part of the successful businessman perfectly. Then he got to my fiancée. The air in the room seemed to thicken. "I don't think we've met," he said, extending his hand. She didn't take it, just stood there, frozen. I started moving toward them, sensing something deeply wrong. "Actually," he continued, his voice smooth as silk, "I think we have. A few years ago, right?" She finally found her voice. I don't think so. I'm pretty sure we have. You might not remember, it was a while ago." He opened the leather portfolio he was carrying, pulled out a single photograph. This helped jog my memory. He held it up. From where I was standing, I couldn't see it clearly, but my fiancée could. Her hand went to her mouth, a small sound escaped her throat, something between a gasp and a whimper. "Where did you get that? Does it matter?" The room had gone quiet. Everyone sensing something was happening, but not understanding what. Conversations died mid-sentence. All eyes turned toward them. I walked over. "What's going on?" The man looked at me, assessing. "You're the fiancé, I assume." "Yeah, who are you?" "Someone who knows your fiancée, knew her, rather. Back when she went by a different name." The silence in the room was absolute, pressing down on us like physical weight. My fiancée hadn't moved, she was still staring at the photo, her breathing shallow and jagged. I could see the panic in her eyes, that same look from the dinner table, only now it was magnified 1,000 times. "What is that?" I asked again, my voice sounding louder than I intended. My uncle looked between us, his confusion growing. "Is there a problem?" The man didn't take his eyes off my fiancée. "No problem at all. Just an old acquaintance reconnecting. He leaned in slightly, his voice dropping to a low, intimate register that made my skin crawl. We have a lot to catch up on, don't we? My fiancée finally blinked, her gaze shifting from the photo to him. Her voice was barely a whisper. I have nothing to say to you. I think you do, he replied, and for the first time, he smiled, a cold, humorless movement of his lips. I think you have a lot to say. And I think your fiancé would be very interested to hear the truth about the life you were living before you decided to become someone else. I took a step closer, placing myself between them. My heart was hammering against my ribs. You need to leave. Now. The man looked at me, then back at her, his expression amused. He didn't seem intimidated in the slightest, he looked like he was exactly where he wanted to be. I think I'll stay. After all, it's a family dinner, isn't it? My mom stepped forward then, her face etched with concern. What's happening? Is something wrong? My fiancée looked at me, her eyes pleading. I saw the terror there, the desperate hope that I would just make this go away. But the man was already moving past me, walking toward the center of the room as if he owned the place. He held up the photo again, loud enough for everyone to hear. I'm sure you all think you know her, he said, his voice ringing out with a strange, performative quality. But some secrets don't stay buried forever. And when they come back to haunt you, they usually bring receipts. He dropped the photo onto the coffee table. It landed face up. My mother gasped, and my sister reached out to cover her own mouth. I looked down, and my blood ran cold. It was a picture of my fiancée, but she looked younger, harder. She was standing in front of an office building I didn't recognize, holding a stack of legal documents. But it wasn't the image that made my head spin, it was the name tag pinned to her jacket, clearly visible in the grainy, high-contrast shot. That wasn't her name. None of it was her name. Who are you? I asked, turning back to her. She looked at me, tears finally spilling over, her face a mask of defeat. I wanted to tell you, she whispered. I didn't know how. The man laughed, a harsh, grating sound that cut through the silence. Oh, she's great at the, I didn't know how, speech. She's been perfecting it for years. He took another step toward her, closing the distance. Shall we tell them the rest, or would you like to do the honors? Tell them what? I stepped forward, my hands clenched at my sides. The protective instinct that had been simmering was now boiling over. You're done talking in riddles. If you have something to say it, or get out of my parents' house right now. My uncle looked bewildered, shifting his weight nervously. I just thought he was a consultant. He told me he worked with your firm, Sarah, with your fiancée. The man turned to my uncle with a sickeningly sweet smile. I do work in the same circles. I just specialize in different kinds of assets. He looked back at me, his eyes cold and devoid of any real human emotion. She didn't tell you about the firm? About the consulting work that paid for her lifestyle before she settled down with a nice, unsuspecting guy like you? My fiancée, or whoever she really was, collapsed onto the sofa, burying her face in her hands. The room felt like it was shrinking. My mother walked over and placed a tentative hand on her shoulder, but the woman didn't look up. It was a mistake, she sobbed, her voice muffled. I was young. I was broke. They told me it was just data entry, just moving numbers around for shell companies. I didn't know it was illegal until it was too late. Oh, please, the man scoffed, pacing the small area rug. You knew exactly what you were doing. You were the best closer they had. You moved millions through those accounts while you pretended to be a junior associate. And then, when the authorities started closing in, you just disappeared. Poof. A new city, a new name, a new life. He stopped right in front of me, his gaze challenging. She didn't just steal money, kid. She stole identities. She destroyed lives. And she thought she could just tuck that away in a box, label it past life, and play house. My heart felt like it had stopped completely. I looked at the woman I loved, the woman I had planned to spend the rest of my life with. Every memory of the last 18 months, our dates, our plans for the future, the way she looked at me, now felt like a carefully crafted performance. "Is it true?" I asked, my voice barely audible. "Did you really do all that?" She looked up, her face tear-streaked and pale. The defiance she had shown at dinner was completely gone, replaced by a raw, terrifying vulnerability. "I had to run," she whispered. "If I hadn't, I would have gone to prison for the rest of my life. I changed, I swear. I'm not that person anymore." "You are that person," the man interrupted, his voice sharp. "You're just better at hiding it. And you owe a lot of people a lot of money." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a plain white envelope, tossing it onto the table next to the photograph. "You have 48 hours to contact me, or the authorities get a copy of everything. And believe me, they have a lot of questions for you." He turned to my uncle, his demeanor shifting instantly back to the polite, charming colleague. "I think I've seen enough, Jim. My apologies for the disruption. Shall we?" My uncle, looking completely lost, nodded slowly. I'm so sorry, everyone. I had no idea." As they turned to leave, the man stopped at the door and looked back at me one last time. "Good luck, kid. You're going to need it." The front door clicked shut, leaving us in a silence so profound it was deafening. I stood in the middle of my parents' living room, staring at the envelope on the table, feeling like the foundation of my entire existence had just been ripped out from under me. The room felt suffocating. My mother was sitting on the sofa, her hand still resting on my fiancée's arm, but her expression had shifted from concern to something harder, more guarded. My father remained standing near the grill, his face pale, looking at me with a mixture of pity and confusion. I stared at the envelope on the table. It sat there, thick and white, an anchor pulling us all down. "Open it," I said, my voice sounding strange in my own ears, hollow and detached. She didn't move. She couldn't. She was staring at the floor, her breath coming in shallow, shuddering gasps. Finally, my sister, who had been standing frozen near the kitchen island, stepped forward. She reached out with trembling fingers and picked up the envelope. She didn't open it, just handed it to me. I tore the flap open. Inside were copies of bank transfer records, internal emails with headers that looked official enough to be terrifying, and a legal document, a warrant with a name I didn't recognize. Her name. "It's not what he made it sound like," she finally whispered, her eyes fixed on the coffee table. "I didn't steal the money for myself. I was working for a firm that was being leveraged by a larger conglomerate. When I realized the scope of what was happening, the money laundering, the shell companies, I tried to pull out. They threatened me. They said if I left, they'd make sure I took the fall for everything." I looked at the documents, then back at her. "So you ran?" "I ran," she agreed, a single tear tracking through her makeup. "I changed my name, I moved, I built a life where I could be safe. And it worked. Until today." "Who was he?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "His name is Marcus," she said, her voice shaking. "He was the one who supervised my work at the firm. He was the one who made sure the trail led to me, not them. If he's here, it means he doesn't just want money. He wants to leverage me for something else. Something worse." My father moved toward us then, his voice low and firm. "You've brought danger into this house," he said, not with anger, but with a chilling, cold clarity. "You lied to my son, and you lied to all of us." "I know," she sobbed. "I know. And I am so sorry. But you have to believe me, I never wanted any of this to touch you." "But it has," I said, and the reality of that hit me harder than anything else. My parents, my sister, my uncle, everyone in this room was now caught in the wake of the life she had tried to leave behind. I looked at the photos, the documents, and then at the woman I had been ready to marry. The trust one had placed in her was gone, shattered into 1,000 pieces that I didn't know if I could ever pick up. You have 48 hours, I repeated, remembering the man's words. I don't have that kind of money, she said, finally meeting my eyes. And even if I did, he'd never stop. He'll keep coming back. He'll keep using me as long as he thinks he can get away with it. Then we have to stop him, I said, though I had no idea how. We have to figure out how to cut the ties, once and for all. You shouldn't be involved in this, she said, her voice filled with a desperate, frantic urgency. You need to walk away. Tell the police, tell them everything, tell them you didn't know. Protect yourself. I looked at the door, then back at her. The man, Marcus, was gone, but the ghost of his presence still hung in the air, thick and oppressive. I didn't know if I could walk away, even if I wanted to. We need to talk, I said, turning to my parents. And we need to figure out exactly what we're going to do next. The atmosphere in my parents' living room shifted from shock to a grim, tactical silence. My father looked at the documents on the table, then at me. If this man is a criminal, he said, his voice steady, he's playing a game of leverage. If we go to the police now, we lose the element of surprise, and we risk whatever evidence he claims to have against your fiancé becoming public before we can prove it's forged. My fiancé wiped her face, her breathing finally leveling out. He isn't bluffing about the files, she admitted, her voice trembling. They're real enough to destroy me, but he's manipulated the digital timestamps to make it look like I was the mastermind. If I just pay him, he'll be back in 6 months for more. He doesn't want money, he wants a permanent shadow to blame for his own future failures. I felt a sudden, cold clarity. Then we don't pay him, I said. We don't give him the money, and we don't give him the fear he's looking for. We go on the offensive. My sister, who had been listening intently, leaned forward. If he's working with Uncle Jim on real estate deals, he has a professional trail. He's using your uncle to get close to your family. We need to find out exactly who this colleague is to the public, not just to the underground. For the next few hours, the living room turned into a war room. We stopped viewing her as the person I thought I knew and started seeing her as a target who had been backed into a corner. We realized that Marcus, in his arrogance, had made a mistake by bringing his proof into a room full of people who had nothing to do with his firm, people who now had a direct stake in protecting their family name. He wants 48 hours. I asked. Fine. We'll give him 48 hours, but not to get the money. We spent the night documenting every communication she had ever received from him, cross-referencing them with the dates he claimed to be in other cities. It was meticulous, exhausting work. By dawn, we had found a glaring discrepancy in his timeline that suggested he was lying about his involvement in the firm during the periods he claimed she was working for him. When the 48-hour mark approached, he called. I didn't let her answer it alone. We put the phone on speaker in the center of the coffee table. Did you bring the payment? His voice was oily, confident. We brought something else, I said, my voice steady. We know about the discrepancies in your dates, Marcus. We know you weren't at the firm when you claimed to be, and we have a very clear record of the real beneficiary of those shell companies. It's not her. It's you. There was a long, heavy silence on the other end of the line. You're making a mistake, he finally said, his voice losing its polished edge. No, I replied. You made the mistake of thinking you could threaten my family. Every piece of data we've gathered is currently sitting in a lawyer's cloud drive, set to auto-forward to the authorities if we don't hear from you that you're leaving the country permanently. Do you want to take that chance? The line went dead. He didn't call back. Weeks have passed since that night. We haven't heard from him, and the threat feels like it has receded into the dark corner of our past. I look at my fiancé differently now, not with the naive trust one once had, but with a new, tested understanding of who she is and what she survived. We are still together, but the happily ever after we had planned has been replaced by something quieter, and perhaps more real. We are no longer living in the fantasy of a perfect, straightforward life, we are living in the truth, and for the first time, it feels like the foundation beneath us is finally solid.